Welcome to the Our Vision Caribbean and Latino Filmmaker Podcast, hosted by Charles Aline and Dr. Christopher C. Odom. On this episode, we speak with Sarah Soto and Jessica Valcin from Espacio Migrante, a Tijuana, Mexico-based grassroots organization who advocates for the human rights of migrants along the border in Mexico. Over the last 15 years, the diversity makeup of the migrant demographic has rapidly evolved into an international mix of migrants from all around the world. This episode is sponsored by the Our Vision Caribbean and Latino Film Festival, which is dedicated to ensuring that Caribbean and Latino filmmakers have a voice that's heard and a wide audience to showcase their work.
I want to welcome everyone to the show. This is Our Vision Caribbean and Latino podcast, and today we have a great organization that's going to be talking about the migrant situation at the border, Espacio Migrante. I hope I pronounced that correctly. So, Jessica, do you want to talk a little bit about the organization and your? Go ahead.
Que si quieres hablar un poquito de la organización, Jessica.
Ok, sí. Bueno, buenas tardes a todos, buenas tardes o buenas noches, donde se encuentra. Bueno, me llamo Jessica Valcin, trabajo en Espacio Migrante. Soy organizadora de la comunidad haitiana en Espacio Migrante. Bueno, mi trabajo en Espacio es ser en el puente, más bien el enlace, porque la comunidad haitiana no habla español, entonces mi trabajo es hacer llegar la información de buen uso y sensible y coordinable al espacio migrante hacia la comunidad. Sí, tradujo. Sí, para.
Okay. Well, Jessica said that she hi everyone from wherever you are. Jessica, she's a community organizer in Espacio Migrante. So her job is to be the link between the organization and the community, especially the African and Haitian community. So because of the barrier of the language, she is like the way that we can communicate with the migrant community that is living in Tijuana and that doesn't speak Spanish.
Okay, that's great. Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit like how the organization got started?
Yes, sure. Well, we started Espacio Migrante 11 years ago. First, like a group of graduate students that we wanted to do something about migration. Like we recently graduated from university, and we wanted to do I live in Tijuana, so Tijuana is very known to be a migrant city. So we wanted to get to know more about what we can do. So we started to volunteer in a soup kitchen here in Tijuana, El Desayunador Salesiano del Padre Chava. This soup kitchen attends a migrant population, but also homeless people that live in Tijuana. So they serve and provide food for all these people, and we started to volunteer serving food or like organizing donations, and we started to talk to people and get to know more about the cases and their situation. And back then, migration was way different from now. Like back then were mostly people from Mexico that were deported to Mexico. Like they were living in the United States for like 20 years, and they got deported to Tijuana. So right now, migration is really diverse. Right now, we have deportees, migrants from Africa, South America, Central America, even for Mexico, that they're fleeing their narco violence, and also other countries. Like we have seen recently people from Afghanistan and other countries in that area. So, or from that area. So back then it was mostly deportees and men, and a few people in transit, and people who were like trying to go to Sonora in order to cross through the desert, and in those cases. So, and even though Tijuana is very known in the outside for being a migrant city, people who lives in Tijuana, we don't really know exactly about what is happening with migration, and there's like a huge criminalization towards the migrant community. So there's a lack of information about what is happening and why people are coming to Tijuana in order to cross to the US. So we started also to do some events, cultural events, in order to create awareness about migration in the city. And in 2015, we became a nonprofit, a legal nonprofit here in Mexico. And in 2016, we saw the first Haitian caravan that arrived to Tijuana. And we started also like to trying to figure out what happened and what Haitian community were arriving to Tijuana, what was the plan. But the thing is that most of them, they didn't speak Spanish. They spoke Portuguese, Creole, French, but it was like very hard to communicate. But in the community, we find people that did speak English, I mean Spanish. So we arranged some like Know Your Rights workshops for Haitian migrants that were in Tijuana about their rights human rights in Mexico. So we started with that program. We also started with we hired a Haitian man to interpret all these workshops in order people receive the information in their language. So that's when we started with language justice in Espacio Migrante. And then the Central American caravans arrived in Tijuana, and we started to involve in that work too. And in 2019, we opened a shelter here in Tijuana, and right now we have a shelter and a community center. We receive migrant families that they are seeking asylum in the U.S.
Okay, so I just want to do a little follow-up question. Do you find which country do you find the most immigrants are coming from, most migrants?
It depends. It's like sometimes we see like an increase of Mexican migrants that they are fleeing from Guerrero or Michoacan, and sometimes we have a huge Haitian community that arrives to Tijuana, or sometimes Central America. It depends. It's not always the same. It changed a lot. Venezuelans.
You'd mentioned earlier that you began a Know Your Rights campaign. What are basic human rights, and why is it important that everyone has access to them?
Well, one of the first rights that are violated here in Mexico, and maybe Jessica can talk a little bit of this, is the language, that people don't receive their information in their language, especially when there's about how to get a refugee in Mexico, how to get to a shelter, or like basic information. The government doesn't provide this information, and that's one of the rights that they are being violated from the Mexican authorities. The other, we saw also like the access to health. People are being denied the access to hospitals. Pregnant women, they don't, the hospitals, the public hospitals don't want to take them when they're in labor. A lot of obstetric violence, I think that's the term in English. And also the access to education and living. In Tijuana, the rents are super, the costs are super high. So, and because we are next to San Diego, a lot of people from that works in San Diego lives in Tijuana because it's cheaper for them. But this increases the cost for us. And for migrants, it's worse because they ask, like, in some requirements, they ask you to be a U.S. citizen in order to rent you an apartment.
Whoa.
So, yes, that happens. And when they're migrants, if they don't have migration documents in Mexico, they deny the rent. They deny to rent the apartment for them, or they charge per person instead for the house. Like, if you are a family of 6, I will charge you per each person. So that increases the cost too. And I will translate a little bit of this, and Jessica can talk maybe of this in this matter because she works directly with the migrant community, and she can explain a little more.
Okay.
Bueno, Jessica, la pregunta fue que, pues, ¿cuáles son los derechos de... Primero hablé un poquito de cómo empezó Espacio Migrante, y ahorita estamos hablando de cuáles son los derechos que vemos que son, o sí, cuáles son los derechos de las personas migrantes, ¿no? Y yo les estoy comentando, pues, los que también se violan mucho, que es como cuando les dan información que no es en su idioma para trámites, también el del tema de la violencia obstétrica y del acceso a la salud y a la vivienda y a la educación. Entonces, no sé si tú quieres hablar un poquito más de esto, explicar un poco más, o algún otro que se te venga en mente. Y recuerda, como despacito, para que yo pueda traducir.
Okay. ¿Puedo también hablar de las alianzas que tenemos con Provem y eso? ¿O la clínica también? ¿O las parteras? Ok, bueno. Bueno, con la comunidad, voy a hablar con la comunidad haitiana y africana. Lo que vemos es que desde 2016 llegó la comunidad haitiana en Tijuana, más bien en México. Desde ahí hasta ahorita, en 2023, para hacer sus documentos pues, legales aquí, todavía están en español, no hay ninguna traducción, o tampoco INAMI tiene un traductor, no para la comunidad. Entonces, la gente todavía está yendo, firmando documentos, o van a hacer sus documentos todo en español, o nada más si no llevan a alguien para hacer traducción, o si ellos mismos de lo que entienden se hace. Ahí me quedo.
Okay. So she said, like, one of the things is the language, like, especially with the African and Haitian community. Well, the Haitian community arrived in 2016. So since then till now, there's no when they want to do like I don't know, to get their migratory status here in Mexico, they are not able, like, they don't receive information in their language, that is Creole or French, and that they still signing documents that they don't know what they really said, and there's not interpretation for them. There's no one that will interpret the information, or if they go to ask information or how to ask to get refugee in Mexico, the information that they receive is in Spanish, so they don't really know exactly what information or what they are being told or signing, because until now there's no interpreters or translations in their languages. In some small cases, for example, my colleagues Jessica and Jesse, they, in some cases when it's necessary, they go with the families or the person to do this paperwork. But this doesn't happen with all the migrant community that is living in Tijuana.
Wow. You know what's fascinating to me? How, the migrants from Africa, how do they get to Mexico?
Well, they basically has to go through the Darien too, in most cases. La comunidad, I will ask Jessica too. La comunidad africana también viaja por el Darien, ¿verdad?
Sí, pero salen desde su país de origen a pie, algunos, hasta pasan en Panamá, más bien en Darien, y llegan acá en México. Hacen todo.
Pero de África, ¿cómo llegan a dónde llegan primero?
De África llegan a Brasil. De Brasil hacen su estancia, por ejemplo, 1 año o 2 años, o algunos meses, algunos, y después pasan. Es un pasaje obligado pasar por Darien, literalmente. Ah,
So, as well as the Haitian community, they flew to Africa or Haiti to Brazil, and then they started their journey to the north, and they had to go to the Darien, and it's a very dangerous place, as maybe you know, and in some cases they do all the work by foot, and they have to go to Panama and to cross, I don't know how many countries, like 7 or 8 countries, in order to get to Mexico.
So my question then is, what's the politics like in Brazil, all the way from Brazil? Because Brazil is the entry point from Africa, flying from migrants flying to Brazil, flying from Haiti to Brazil, and then starting their journey to Mexico. So now when migrants get to Mexico, what's the political attitude of America in accepting these migrants, or these migrants trying to get into America? What's the political climate like for those? Go ahead.
Well, it's really complicated because right now there's a lot of community, like from everywhere, like from Middle East, from Africa, from Haiti, from South America, Central America, Mexico. But it's like it's not very good. Like the political. The thing is, well, basically Mexico is working as the border, like they are retaining. I think that's the right word. I'm sorry, English is not my first language, but
Don't worry about it. You're doing good.
like they are retaining migration from, like, that comes from all these countries, in order so they don't get to the US. So that's basically the work that is doing Mexico, in a few words, like what is doing. And we know for sure, because through the airports they detain people, and in, like, when they are doing their journey through bus through Mexico, they do, like, I don't know, like they have checkpoints, like migration checkpoints, and they check the papers, and sometimes they detain people and they return them to Tapachula, which is border with Guatemala, and they send them, like they deport, or they give, like, in Spanish is orden de salida, like a kind of a deportation.
So Mexico have a deportation policy that they send these immigrants back to their initial countries, the original countries that they came from?
In some cases, not in every case, they send them exactly to their country. For example, when they are from Colombia, El Salvador, or these countries, they just send them to Tabasco or to Tapachula with this deportation document. But they not necessarily put them in a flight in order to go to Colombia, for example. So in some cases this happens.
So is there refugee status that these guys, do you guys do, like, refugee, maybe Jessica could answer that, like, can they into the America if they have refugee status, and how would they go about getting, like, sort of refugee status? Do you guys work with that?
We do work with refugee, but only in Mexico, not with the US, because we don't have a US attorney, but we do work with other US organizations that they have lawyers, migration lawyers, and they help with this. But they also have a lot of work, so it's very difficult that they can take all the cases, because there's not enough attorneys and time to do all this. But when they're here and they go to Espacio Migrante in Mexico, if they want to apply for the refugee here in Mexico, our migration attorney, she helps them to get the paperwork, but not for the U.S. Like, we only provide information. We in all the cases when they seek an asylum in the U.S., we send them with Al Otro Lado, which is an organization here in Tijuana and in San Diego too. And they provide more information about what is going on, what is the how is the asylum process is going to be. And right now people are entering through the CBP1 application, but it's taking a long time in order so they can be in the US. And when the only way to take their asylum cases is that they are in the US.
So they have to cross the border.
Yes, exactly. And that's why a lot of people are just like trying to get to the US through not official port of entries, because that's the only way.
Oh my goodness. I mean, is there, okay, I know this might be difficult, but is there a way like the American public can assist, like knowing this? Because I mean, these people are coming. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. Most people think it's economic, but it could be like you say, you talk about narcotic stuff. It could be a lot of things they're running from. I mean, we're trying to educate the American public. That's why we do this stuff. And like, is there anything that the American like rep can talk to their representation, like their politicians, and say, this is not a humane way to treat human beings?
Este episodio está patrocinado por el Festival de Cine Latino y Caribeño Our Vision, que se dedica a garantizar que los cineastas latinos y caribeños tengan una voz que se escuche y una amplia audiencia para mostrar su trabajo. El Festival de Cine Latino y Caribeño Our Vision es el único festival de cine latino y caribeño combinado que califica para los Oscar a los cortometrajes. Cada año, Our Vision proyectará a los ganadores de las categorías de cortometrajes en vivo en los cines en ambas costas durante una semana como parte de los requisitos para la consideración del Oscar. Haga clic en el enlace en nuestro perfil ahora para enviar su película al próximo Festival de Cine Latino y Caribeño Our Vision para compartir su trabajo, llegar a su audiencia y convertir sus sueños en realidad.
Well, I think so. Well, it's basically, for example, I know that each year, like, people can, I don't know exactly how to name it because I don't know exactly how it works, but like people like get meetings with their representations, or all organizations in the US can talk with their representatives so they can I guess that they can ask for more budget in order to have more shelters. I think Jessica, maybe the internet. I will talk and I will send. I will ask Jessica what happened. Okay. But yes, like for example, right now in San Diego, now there's not enough shelter for people that are crossing. So CBP, what they're doing is like just letting people in the street by themselves, like with no shelter, with no way to communicate with their families, with no place to go. So it's really hard and really complicated. And I think that's where nonprofits in the US or the community can put pressure on their governments, like to send more funds or to, I don't know, do anything what they need to do in order to ensure that people that are crossing to the US, they are at least receiving like the basic needs, like a place to stay, I don't know, like information, and they're just dropping people in San Diego, San Isidro, and letting them be.
This is probably
Okay.
a question for Jessica, since she's a community organizer. What role has the stories, the pictures, the video, and technology like social media? What role has that played in your work in trying to advocate for the human rights of these migrants who are apparently from all over the world?
Jessica, esta pregunta es para ti. Que tú como organizadora comunitaria, ¿cómo crees o qué crees, cómo crees que el rol de los medios de comunicación, de las redes sociales, de los videos, de las fotografías? Um, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I forgot.
What role has the stories of the migrants, of the pictures, the video, and social media and technology played in your strategy to get the message out and to advocate for the human rights of migrants?
Bueno, pues sí, todo lo que te mencioné de redes sociales, las historias, testimonios de las personas, qué papel juegan, ¿no? A la hora de hacer tu trabajo para, pues sí, como para defender los derechos de las personas migrantes, y cómo eso o esas cosas, te han servido a ti o cómo crees que sirven o funcionan a la hora de hacer el trabajo que hacen las organizadoras comunitarias.
Bueno, pues primero, pues con los medios sociales no siempre ha sido un lío, ¿no? Dando estas informaciones. Bueno, el impacto que la estrategia que yo tomo siempre, ¿no? Que sea de una fuente veredicta, pues para darle, ¿no? A la comunidad o llamándoles a la comunidad, hasta vez que ya pasó tal cosas, que tal cuestiones y también, ¿no? Que la comunidad tiene esta confianza con nosotros, especialmente más bien también con las organizadoras, no decirles, escuché esta información, si es cierto, y nosotros dijimos, pues sí, no es cierto, no, os vamos a buscar más información para darte, ¿no? los puntos, darte los puntos veredictos. Y nosotros está muy bien para nosotros también, ¿no? Porque cada vez, una vez al mes hacemos juntas comunitarias con la comunidad en general. Entonces, para saber también, ¿no? sus problemas y lo que intenten en nosotras, de nuestra parte, ¿no? Buscar, o sea, para tener un fuente veredicto, por ejemplo, un abogado, ¿no? Que trabaja en otro lado, o también, ¿no? Un abogado, ¿no? Que puede hablar de sus casos y que ellos se sienten en confianza, pues decirnos sus casos, pero de nuestra parte es nuestra estrategia en comunidad.
So she said first that the theme of social media is a little mess because there's a lot of misinformation also in social media. So when they say that our strategy is when we provide information is to be sure that the resource or the resources are reliable, like they are, like, I don't know, like a newspaper that we know very well, or I don't know, from a very reliable resources. And also, like, to create people, like, the thing that their work is to build trust in the community. So when they see an information or they hear an information, they go with them and ask, oh, is this true? I saw this, they sent me this, is this true? And they said, no, it's not true, it could be like a scam, or no, it is true, like you can. And we always tell them, like, do not accept information in not reliable funds. You can go through to our social media and see everything we're going to be posted, and is going to be posted in English, Spanish, French, and Creole. So people have access to this information. And another thing that they work on is they organize every month, once a month, they organize a community meeting when they invite people in order to listen their needs, their about their challenges that they're facing, so we can look for solutions, or how to, like, maybe we need to, like they said, we need more information about what is going on in the border, so we try to talk to a U.S. attorney in order that maybe we can invite them to to these community meetings, and he can provide information about what is going on, or maybe solve some of their doubts about what is going about their cases, or what is going to happen when they cross the U.S. and or maybe we have an area for advocacy, and if we see that it's something that we need to do, like to make pressure in the government in Mexico in order to change that, we also work on that.
Wow. Chris, maybe you can help me with this question. What I want to ask is, how does the artistic community, do you guys work with the artistic community to help raise awareness of what's going on with the migrants?
For us, it's also a change of narrative too, like with these events, and to create like these collaborations with the artistic community in Tijuana. It's also like to show about what that migration is not necessarily a bad thing. It's like migration is not equal to problem or to insecurity and all those things. And it's and we really focus in working with the artistic community that in most cases they're also migrants that are here in Tijuana. So the thing is to show what they're doing in the community, what they're like, if they're singers or they're dancers, or maybe they have a restaurant here in Tijuana, and to show also the community that it's not necessarily bad. The migration is not bad. It's not real. I mean, it's not equal to insecurity, or like, because a lot of people perceive migration like this. Is like migration is causing trouble, is causing insecurity in the city, and it's not really true. It's not true. So we try to change the narrative through these cultural and artistic events, to show the community in Tijuana and in San Diego that this is what is happening with the migrant community here in Tijuana. And then there's also space to talk about what migration policies are doing to this community in Mexico and in the US, but also to show the way that the migrant community resists.
Do you guys have like I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
This is a nice segue for, could you tell us a bit about the Miradas Fronterizas cultural and artistic festival?
Yes, so we each each year we have a cultural festival. The name is Miradas Fronterizas. This is our 10th edition. This year is going to be our 10th edition. I don't know if that's the way like you say it in English, but we've been doing these events for 10 years now, and the event is also to create a space of art or in culture, about like to show the diverse cultures right now there in Tijuana, to also to provide a small space for small restaurants that are the owners are migrants, and to show what's the work that the migrant community is doing here in Tijuana. And that's one of the events that we have in order like to try to change the narrative through these kind of events too. Not only this, but one way to do it. And this year is going to be the 1st and 2nd, December 1st and 2nd in Tijuana. We are going to have 2 panels about what is like an update or what is going on in the border. And we have a guest from the US, and his name is Jason De Leon, and we're going to present an exhibition of his project, which is Hostile Terrain 94. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but they basically work on to ¿cómo se dice? I forgot the word in English, I'm sorry. to like if they collect the the objects that migrants left in the desert of Sonora and Arizona, and talk about also like how these migration policies are forcing people to cross through these hostile terrains or these hostile I don't know, spaces or borders, because also it's a border, but it's in the desert. Like they're mostly they're on the risk of not surviving for the climate of the area, but also because there's a lot of people that are chasing them, or they are in many dangers. So it's to show how this what is happening with this migration policies that they are forcing people to try to cross through these areas. And well, that's one of the things we are having the exhibition, and the second day, the December 2nd, we are going to have like our festival, like a more like a party, and we are having some performances of artists here in the community in Tijuana and in the migrant community. We're going to have a small gastronomic fair where people, a restaurant from El Salvador, from Haiti, and from Venezuela, they're going to be selling their food. And I don't know what else we're going to, like some photo exhibitions about workshops that we have been working with girls and teenagers, migrant girls and teenagers.
I also know you guys also do a collaborative with Chile, right? With about the Haitian immigrants and in Tijuana and what is it?
Santiago, Chile.
Santiago,
Chile.
Santiago, Chile. Thank you, Chris.
I don't. That doesn't sound to me. I don't. With who? I'm sorry.
The collective Sur from Chile, about the Haitian migrants in Tijuana, and also from Santiago, Chile.
Oh well, we have been working with a lot of like researchers that they're like studying the migration of Haitians through Tijuana, but we also have been doing some studies of our own with other organizations here. For example, in 2020, we made a study where we wanted to know what was the impact of the pandemic in the migrant community. And basically what we found is that migrant people don't have access to rights. Like they don't have access to healthcare, they don't have access to living, they don't have access to education. So it's basically, that's the conclusion of the study. And last year we started a new one, because in this study we saw that the African and Haitian migrants are the more affected of this I don't know how to say it. Like we see that it's because of the barrier of the language, but also for the racial profiling. People like they don't receive, or their rights are denied by these two things. And last year we started a new study to see what's the situation of the the name is Racial Justice, and it's about the Haitian community in Mexico, like in Tapachula, because we went to Tapachula and also in Tijuana, and to compare what the two borders, and to see if to find what was going on in these two different borders.
What type of assistance does your organization and the migrants need most? And if somebody wants to provide assistance, what do they need to do?
Jessica, esta es para ti. ¿Como qué tipo de asistencia o de apoyo necesita más la comunidad?
Diría en todos los aspectos, ni pues no va a decir uno más, uno menos. Aún así que en Espacio al lado tenemos la clínica y tenemos también a las parteras. Sí, nos hacen un buen trabajo con la comunidad, pero también ellos, ¿no? Falta personas de esta parte, pues falta asistencia medical, tanto también, ¿no? Con educación, sí, tenemos una asociación que trabajamos de antemano con ellos, ¿no? Porque los hijos, ¿no? De cada integrante, ¿no? De una familia que es migrante, pues podría ingresar igual, mucho tiempo, pues asistente acá, y mucha asistencia del lado de inmigración, también por la tradición, y la asistencia que siempre la gente viene y pregunta, por ejemplo, un asistente de modelo, ¿no? Para poder comprar su comida, ¿no? También una asistencia también para pagar su casa, y la asistencia que vemos que ahorita con lo de CBT, que es una asistencia de viaje, porque la comunidad, por ejemplo, están en Tijuana, y tienen cita hasta Calexico, que está más cerca, pero tienen que tomar un autobús. Entonces ellos no trabajan porque no tienen los documentos que requieren para trabajar, no lo tienen. Entonces es esta parte, ¿no? Pues de todos, falta muchos, ¿no? Apoyo, pero el más que estamos más seguido para dar, que necesitamos es apoyo monedero, apoyo de renta y apoyo para viajes, ¿no? Para cobrar.
Gracias, Jessica. So she said, like, basically, like, there's a lot of need for the migrant community, and um, I also want to add what she said. Like, there's a lot of shelters here in Tijuana, but there's not enough shelters in order to receive the whole amount of people that are arriving in Tijuana. So a lot of migrant community doesn't live in the shelter, and they are forced to live or to rent in an apartment or a house, like in very far away from downtown of Tijuana. So she said basically, like, medical assistance, there's not enough, like the people are being denied their right to have access to health. And if they ask, like, maybe they go to a private doctor, but they ask, like, to do some, I don't know, like lab tests or x-ray or something like that. And because in most cases people don't have the documentation in order to have a formal job here. So it's like, if they don't have a job, how are they going to have money in order to attend or to go to a private doctor, for example? About education also, like, even though we work with the government in order to help families to enroll their children in school, there's a lot of need there too, because it's not enough that having this part of the government saying, okay, we accept migrant children, because when you go to the school, not every school is very receptive with migrant kids, and so it's another thing. It's very complicated. Also, like, to the need of have their Mexican documents in order to have a work here, to have a job, to rent a house. I don't know, like, even to put your children to daycare, it's like, it's really complicated. And because not all of the people, most of the migrant community doesn't live in shelters, there's a lot of needs also to cover, to cover basic needs, like to pay rent, to buy food, to pay some, if they have to go to the doctor, to pay that, to get glasses. So we see all these needs also in the migrant community that doesn't live here in the shelter, and especially for the people for the community that don't speak English, it's very complicated, because they are not also receiving information. So that's another need.
So Sarah, if someone wanted to, okay, let me just finish this one. If someone wanted to make a donation how would they go about it to your organization?
Well, we are a Mexican nonprofit, so you can donate, or people can donate through our Mexican account, but also we are a 501c3 in the US, so it could be through a check, or if you go to our webpage, we have a PayPal account, and we also have a GoFundMe account, so it could be through these ways.
Do you want to give your web address?
Yes, I will. How should I put it in the chat?
Yeah, so you can say it also on,
Oh, okay. It's Espacio Migrante.org. That's our webpage. But I will put it here, and if you want to share it also, it's great.
Okay, cool.
So you mentioned many migrants don't live in shelters. They have to rent, and they may not have paperwork. So is there a large population of undocumented workers in Mexico and in Tijuana?
I think yes. And also even though when they have documents like that they can work here in Tijuana or Mexico, the jobs are not very well paid. So sometimes they just decide to, I don't know, like to sell something on the street, or like to go more like for informal jobs. We say it here because for example, Tijuana is very well known for having factories, like to produce a lot of things. But the shifts there are 12 hours daily per 5 days, and they pay them around $60 to $70 per week.
Week?
So
I thought you were going to say a day.
no,
My
no,
God.
no. It's
Oh,
imagine working 12 hours, 5 days a week, and only receiving $70, or
I can't
it's
imagine.
not enough. No, it's that's one of the things. Like people said, oh, they can work in a factory. We call it here maquila, but it's not a very well paid job, and it's a lot of hours, so it's really complicated. So that's when they said, like, no, I'm going to sell something else because I cannot. It's a lot of time, or they are so far away, or like it's just not enough. Imagine having a family of 5 and earning $60 to $70 per week, and having to pay $200 or $150 per rent per month.
It sounds like the factory exists basically to abuse the migrants and then use them basically as slave labor.
Dice que parece que las fábricas o las maquilas solamente existen para explotar a las personas. Jessica, ¿qué piensas de eso?
Pues literalmente que sí, pues de 12 horas y te pagan, por ejemplo, a la semana 1,000 pesos, pues dependiendo, ¿no? Si tú, porque abriste los ojos y te dan más, ¿no? Y trabajando de noche a veces algunas personas, pues literalmente, pues ahí sufres discriminación, pues violencia laboral y también acoso. O sea, pues una persona vive eso diario en una maquinadora. Y además, hasta aunque esta persona tiene 4 años o 5 años trabajando en esta misma empresa, que es un migrante, no le suben de puesto. O sea, se queda en el mismo puesto de estos 5 años.
So she said that, like, yes, basically that's what happens in the maquila. She said, like, sometimes people chooses to work in the night shifts because they pay a little more. And like, even though if you have like 6 years working there, they are not going to promote you, or because you are a migrant. And in this spaces also, people, migrant communities suffer from violence, like I don't know how to the name in English, but work harassments from um and sexual harassment, especially towards women. And yes, it's like it's complicated, and that's the thing. Here in Tijuana, people said like, oh, it's nice. We have a lot of places where migrant community can work. But first, you cannot work if you don't have papers. And second, if you work a lot of time for like this amount of money. And I've seen cases where the community has to work over hours in order to receive more salary. But imagine if you already work 12 hours and you do 3 more, you're working 15 days per day.
All right, so let me ask you guys a question, and this is for you, Sarah and Jessica. Do you guys envision a day when this is better?
Pregunta Jessica que si vemos el día cuando esto sea mejor. Si quieres yo empiezo y luego tú ya sigues. I don't know. I don't want to be pessimist. We try to push. We try to work and with the authorities too in order to change all this. But it's really complicated, and it's more complicated even more because people see migration like something that is kind of evil, and so the social media, the news has a lot of things like, and the governments has a lot of thing to do with this vision of the people about migration, because when Title 42 ended a few months ago, the U.S. government sent I don't know how many troops to the border. So that sends a message that migration is dangerous and you need to send military to the border in order to to protect the citizens. So we have seen when caravans arrive to Tijuana, also in Mexico, they send a lot of military, a lot of Guardia Nacional, and these actions that the government do, they send a message, like a clear message, that migration is really complicated, violent, and dangerous. So they have to do all these things in order to keep everything controlled. But it's not that. It's not that is just like we have seen these strategies, and right now we know why they do this. And I don't know. I don't. We really wish that something will change, but we have seen that every year it's more complicated. Our work is getting complicated too. So in some cases we win, or we won some cases, but something else happens. So it's like a roller coaster. Like sometimes we see like an advance, and in other cases we see that we a retroceso. I don't know the word in English, like to
step back
in migration policies and the work, and I don't know, even in the narrative about migration. And we find it very complicated with these Republican governments in the US also.
Yeah, I think the governments of the world do not have an appetite to find a solution for migration, but it sounds like there is a role for NGOs and nonprofits like yourself to step in and to provide some sort of assistance now, since the governments will not.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
No, it was not a question. It was more of a statement
Okay.
saying,
I'm sorry.
organizations like Espacio Migrante are the solution, while the governments are actually the problem.
Yes. And I don't know, Jessica, no sé si tú quieres agregar a esto que estaba diciendo de que tan difícil vemos que esto va a cambiar, pero también pues que el gobierno no apoya. No sé si quieres mencionar.
Sí, bueno, es que no podemos decir que se quedó igual, porque estamos viendo el 2016 hasta 2020 era difícil que un niño pues ingresara a la escuela y ahora vemos que eso ya ha cambiado, ¿no? Por ejemplo, llena su formato o aunque lo llena, puede ir a una escuela que está cerca de su casa y pues podría ingresar, ¿no? Si hay espacio. Hay cosas que todavía no han cambiado por debido al tema de la salud, que sigue igual, pero también en esta parte que el gobierno pues no apoya, ¿no? No apoya a las asociaciones civiles, no apoya, ¿no? A ver el trabajo que hace que ellos deben de hacer. O sea, las asociaciones sí pueden apoyar, pero la más fuente de ingreso, fuente de apoyo debe ser del gobierno que no lo tienen, o sea, que no nos da, ¿no? Pues también con la comunidad, ¿no? Buscando, por ejemplo, un albergue que hasta el gobierno dice que no tiene, entonces las asociaciones civiles es buscar un espacio para que la comunidad se quede, o también dando informaciones en su idioma natal, entonces que el gobierno, pues, no apoya literalmente, es algo que dice el gobierno que, pues, no va a apoyar literalmente, y se ve y se siente también, pues, no el apoyo, ¿no? del gobierno. Sí, sí quiero agregar.
So, Jessica said that like we cannot say that and nothing changed from 2016 till now, because right now it was back then it was really hard to imagine that Haitian children attending school, but there's a lot of things also like that haven't changed. For example, the access to health, like it's still the same. We have seen a lot of cases of racism also too. Like this is something really strong here in Mexico, in the whole country, not only in Tijuana. And but yes, and it's really hard because the work, the nonprofits organizations here in Tijuana are basically what they're doing the work of the government. So the government do not support the organizations, and they don't have, for example, like enough shelters of the government. They don't provide information in their language of the people. So this is something that we have to step in and to do this work. But basically, it's like the government's responsibility to do this. And it's also very complicated for us to access to resources. So because we are a nonprofit and like they are always checking that we are not doing money laundering or something like that, and it's really complicated in Mexico to be a nonprofit organization. You have a lot of requirements. The government doesn't help much, and it's complicated for organizations here in Mexico to keep receiving donations. And I want to point something that the government they do have the resources, they do have the capacity, but they are not willing to do the work. Because when they like months ago, when when we received a huge community from Ukraine, the government from the US and from Mexico, they moved quickly. Like they arranged a shelter, they arranged transportation in order to process people, and they send them to the port of entry. Like they do a lot of things that they have never done with the rest of the migrant community. Not for the Haitian community, not for the Central American, not even for Mexicans. So that shows us that they do have the capacity, they do have the resources, but they are not willing to do it. And we think it's a really thing of discrimination and racism.
So you have to have the right color skin, and that's what you.
Basically, in the passport.
Oh my God! This is so heartbreaking. Just to hear that they do have the capacity. If they really want to help, they can help. It's not that they can't help, but they can because they have shown that they can help. That's really heartbreaking. I really want to thank you guys for coming on the show. This was like an education. I want to thank Sarah, yourself, and I want to thank Jessica. This has been really an eye opener, and we're planning to use our platform just to get the word out. So I want to thank you guys for coming on the show today. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's been really enlightening to hear from the both of you, and I hope that we can help.
Okay, thank you so much for your interest and for inviting us. Jessica, ¿quieres decir algo?
Muchas gracias por el espacio, muchas gracias por escucharnos también, ¿no? Y pues muchas gracias, ¿no? Que vemos también que el trabajo que hace Espacio Migrante pues llega muy alto, entonces eso nos da mucha felicidad, ¿no? Que nuestro trabajo pues lleva hasta allá, ¿no? Espacio Migrante, y también ¿no? que sea un fuente de pues digamos, de un ejemplo, ¿no? Para las demás asociaciones. Muchas gracias por contactar.
Jessica said, thank you very much. Thank you for the space and for hearing about our work. And and thank you also for using your platform to talk about the work that we do and to get to more spaces or spread the word out.
Cool. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Click the link in our profile now to submit your film to the next Our Vision Caribbean and Latino Film Festival to share your work, reach your audience, and turn your dreams into reality.